6 seconds. That's how long it takes recruiters or hiring managers to review your resume during the first round of review. Hi, I'm Abby and welcome to the Life Work Balance YouTube channel. Today is part 1 of a 2-part series that will help you beat those first 6 seconds. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button as well as the bell so that you can receive life work balance advice delivered directly to you every Sunday. This 2-part series is based off of my ebook, Resume Tips, 3 Ways to Beat the 6 Seconds. If you're interested, you can download it for free using the link in the description below. And although my ebook is based off of 3 different tips, my video series is 2 tips because I already have 1 video that's specifically on tailored resumes, which is the 3rd tip in my ebook. I've linked to it in the description below. When recruiters and hiring managers review your resume for the first time, they're looking for key words and phrases that will indicate that you're going to be a good fit for the position as well as for the organization. This means your resume is the document that will either open the door to your job search success or will close it. So, tip 1 on how to open that door to job search success, readability. Now there's 2 parts to readability. There's the basics, which is what you absolutely need to include on your resume, and then there's also the formatting. So we're going to go over both of those today. So when it comes to the basics of what absolutely needs to be included on your resume, that includes things like your name. Your name should always appear at the top of your resume. You also want to include your phone number, your email address, and your LinkedIn URL. You want to make sure that these are updated, current, and that you check all 3 relatively frequently. You can include your address if you'd like. However, it's not required unless you're applying to a job that requires residency. So for example, some local or state jobs in the United States do require residency in that municipality, county, or state in order to get hired for the job. So if you are applying to a job that requires residency, then include your address on your resume. When it comes to your name, include your full preferred name. This should really be the first thing that the person who's reading your resume sees. Next is your phone number. It's critical that you list a working phone number. Your resume is thought to have the most current information listed on it for how to contact you, and if the recruiter cannot reach you by phone, it's game over. Something else you may want to consider is re-recording your voicemail so that it sounds more professional if you're expecting some calls. You also want to ensure that you have adequate space in your voicemail box. If someone can call you because your number is working, but your voicemail box is full, they're probably not going to record a message, and they're probably also not going to waste their time calling you a second time. So you want to make sure that your voicemail box is empty or is not full so that people can leave you messages. You also may want to consider discontinuing ringback tones, which is music that might play when they're calling you, as that can come off as unprofessional. Including your email is essential. Email is the primary and preferred means of communication for almost everyone in the world today. It's definitely the primary and preferred communication for recruiters, organizations, and applicants. Your email must be on your resume. Ensure that you're using a work-appropriate email. Typically, I recommend first name and last name, whether it's first name dot last name or if it's first name, last name all together. But hotshot89@gmail.com is not going to do you any favors. There's no reason why you can't have a professional email address. There are email providers like Gmail, Yahoo, and Outlook that provide free email accounts. So go ahead and create a professional one specifically for your job search process starting today. Finally, you want to include your LinkedIn URL. If you don't have a LinkedIn profile yet, sign up for one now. It's imperative to have a professional online presence in today's job market, and LinkedIn is a great way to do this. It's not uncommon for recruiters or hiring managers to Google your name during the job search process, and when they Google your name, your LinkedIn profile is likely going to be one of the first things that pops up. You want to consider your LinkedIn profile your virtual resume. So now let's talk about formatting. You want your resume to be clean, simple, and straightforward. This means you do not want to include things like graphics or colored fonts. Important formatting to consider includes the length of your resume, margins of your resume, the organization of your resume, any headers, the font style, and size that you might choose to use, bullet points, and footer. So first, let's talk about length. When you submit a job application, you should submit a tailored resume specifically designed for that job that you're applying to. Now, this document should be no more than 1 or 2 pages long. If it's 3 or more pages, you probably need to do some trimming. You always want to be thoughtful about what you include on your resume. The content should be relevant to the job that you're applying to, and it should be of value to both the recruiter and the hiring manager. If you have things like patents or publications that are relevant to the job that you're applying to, or you have specific instructions related to your resume, then you may not need to stick to the 1 to 2 page rule. So exceptions to this include federal resumes. If you have any questions about federal resumes, I've got a video that you should check out. I've linked to it in the description below. If you're concerned about the amount of time it might take for you to create a tailored resume and cut something down to 2 pages, consider creating a master resume first. I've also got a video on this, so please check that out. I've also linked to it in the description below. Creating a master resume will give you the ability to easily tailor resumes to specific jobs rather than feeling like you have to recreate something each time. Next, let's talk about margins. The space on your resume is valuable real estate. Consider narrowing your margins to 0.5. So this is 0.5 inches at the top, at the bottom, and on the left and on the right. Microsoft Word allows you to just use the narrow margin setting and it will automatically adjust your format to this. This will give you overall an extra inch of space on your document, and that can help you fit more relevant information into the 1 to 2 pages that you have to work with. Next is headings. Headings make it very easy for the reader to decide what they're going to read and in what order. If the reader has to search your document to find information related to education, work experience, certifications, etc., they will likely discard your resume and not pass it on to the next round. When it comes to resumes, because your resume is such valuable real estate, I recommend not including an objective statement. They're typically vague and they don't relate to the very specific position. If you absolutely feel the need to include something like an objective on your resume, consider calling it something like a professional statement or an executive summary. A professional summary or executive statement should be targeted to the employer and the specific job that you're applying to. It should include your greatest set of skills, it should summarize your experience, and it should not include first-person pronouns like I or me. I also recommend titling your work experience section as relevant professional experience, because you can include both paid and unpaid work experience. You have to conduct yourself in a professional manner when you're volunteering or when you're getting paid to do work. So calling this section relevant professional experience gives you some flexibility with the type of information that you will include. So as you can see based on my resume that I've got displayed on the screen, my headers on the very top of my resume include academic education and relevant professional experience. That way the reader knows exactly what they're looking at and they can decide what order they want to read the information. Next, let's talk about organization. If minimum qualifications of a job include education, like a bachelor's degree or a master's degree or any higher education, include your education first or toward the top of your resume. When listing your experience, make sure you have it listed in chronological order, with your most recent experience at the top and your oldest experience at the bottom. Make sure you include the following information for each job: employer name, position title, dates employed, so this includes month and year, and location of the employer. Next, let's talk about the font. You do want to stick with the same font style throughout your entire document. You also want to use different sizes of fonts to change things up. So for example, your headers might be a larger font than the rest of the information on your resume. You also want to pick a font that is easy to read. So this includes Arial, Calibri, or Times New Roman. Don't get fancy with script-like font or Comic Sans. Stick to something that is easy and clean to read. Don't use font sizes that are smaller than 10 point. If you do anything smaller than 10, then it becomes extremely difficult to read, especially if the document has been printed off. Don't use colored fonts. Stick to black font, even for URLs. So when you look at your resume, if you see any blue hyperlinks, go ahead and change those to black or remove the hyperlink altogether. You also want to avoid underlining your fonts. Applicant tracking systems, which are the computers that might scan your resume before human eyes look at it, might confuse underlined letters with other letters. Next, let's talk about bullet points. Bullet points are your friend. Paragraphs of text are an eyesore. They also make it really difficult to pick out key words and phrases associated with the job that you've been applying to. Convert your paragraphs to bullet points. Likely each sentence will be a bullet, and you want to try to keep each bullet to one line. Start each bullet point with a strong action verb. Once you convert those paragraphs of text to bullet points, it will be very easy to see what bullet points are relevant to the position and which ones are not. Delete the ones that are not relevant and keep the ones that are. Finally, footer. If your resume is 2 or more pages long, which really it should only be 1 to 2 pages, ensure that you have a footer that tells the reader what page number they're on and also lists your name so that if they happen to separate 2 pages and they don't print them front and back, that they will easily be able to tell which page goes with which and in which order. I also recommend having a header that includes your name and contact information. That way, when someone is just looking at both documents and comparing them side by side, they know that they go together based on the same header. Then when you have that footer, which includes the page number, then they can organize it based off of that. So that was our very first tip, readability, on how you're going to get your foot in the door and beat those first 6 seconds when submitting resumes and job applications. Next week, stay tuned for tip number 2, which is about what not to include on your resume. If you found this helpful, please remember to give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button as well as the bell so that you can receive life-work balance advice delivered directly to you every Sunday. Thanks, and we'll see you next week.